Well, either way, we're looking back at Delaney Land and how he managed to construct Delaney Land over the past couple of decades or so. So we've been looking back at some of the moments of John Delaney's career, an accountant, of course, by trade, and rose to prominence as treasurer of the FAI. And we were looking around for evidence over the past couple of days or so as to how John Delaney managed to gather this nous to become somebody who would mark himself as a fairly competent treasurer, I think it's fair to say. And there was one piece of content that was made a couple of years ago, John the Baptist, on Independent.ie, which gives us a great background into the business acumen of John Delaney.
I went down to a bakery down in Kerry. There was a family bakery, part owned by our family and part owned by...
John the Baker?
Yeah, not Pat the Baker, John the Baker. And I ran a bakery for a couple of years.
So are you any good?
I didn't bake, but I had to learn. I'll tell you, some of the best principles I've learned came from running that bakery. I remember going down first week, there was £100,000 owed to the sheriff in back taxes, and the health inspector was in within 2 weeks saying he was going to close the place. That's a fact.
How did you deal with that?
Well, I had no feel for the bakery at the time, so I told the health inspector if he wanted to lose 40 shops in Kerry, that was his business. He lived in Kerry. And he backed off straight away.
So you were clever enough to say that. So you're aware of how to speak to these people?
Well, I think there was a bit ballsy maybe, but he didn't want to close it because there was 40 jobs in Kerry would have been gone. And the sheriff, I wrote 10 post-dated checks out for a year, 10 grand a month. And thankfully they all cleared. And we made a go of it then. We made a real go of it.
So how did you go from the bakery? What happened then?
Bakery, I got involved with a logistics company in Waterford. I was partly involved with a furniture shop in Athlone from my dad as well. And I just took on different projects all the time, You don't have, the one thing I've learned, like we built the stadium, the Viva Stadium, when I got involved with the FAI. I think the same business principles apply to any business. So I didn't know how to build a stadium. I didn't know effectively how to run a pub. I knew the other side of the pub like any young lad, or a furniture shop or a logistics company. But when you learn the business.
So that's a background of John Delaney's business experience as explained by himself in John the Baptist. And as I've said, Saipan really is when he kind of burst onto the public consciousness when things were going down in Japan. He held a fairly iconic press conference in Merrion Square here in Dublin. We can bring you an image of that. Can we just zoom in a little bit closer onto that? That's right, Ger Gilroy right there. Two worlds colliding, two careers about to boom. And we saw, I think at the time, a fairly definite stance from John Delaney on Saipan. He wasn't pulling any punches. He knew exactly what he was going to say, and he was clear and concise when he spoke on the 6-1 to Uno O'Hagan in 2002.
John Delaney of the FAI joins us from our Waterford studio. What's your reaction to that interview?
Well, Roy is obviously very hurt. He sounds very emotional, but we all are. Everybody involved in football, from speaking to people in the hotel in Japan, the players, the management, everybody's hurt by this situation. But it doesn't seem that we can achieve a resolution here, to be fair.
Do you not think it's possible for both sides to be big about this, to forget what's happened, and to go on and continue with the World Cup?
It's difficult to see, given the circumstances. Let's not forget that the meeting in Saipan was emotionally charged. There was a lot of comment made, which we've all read in the papers, and it's very hard.
But it's a week later. I mean, the time has passed. Tempers should have cooled. There should be maybe wiser counsel should prevail.
I don't think that's achievable at this stage, to be fair. Again, the transcript of what Roy has said in full, we'll hear it at 8:30. We'll go to the team hotel, but I don't see any change in the attitude, to be straight.
So John Delaney speaking on the 6-1 there when everything was going down in Saipan at the time. As ever, though, it took him 12 years to give a full, brilliant answer on Saipan, and it was, of course, in John the Baptist on Independent.ie.
So Saipan was a snapshot of how, in my opinion, the malaise in the organisation, how it was run at national level. And as a result, we were able to call for reform and implement reform, because at that stage there was very few obstacles to reform, given the nature of how Saipan had exercised not only the Irish public, but the world public. And nobody, no organisation, no matter how big or how small, could say, listen, Saipan was just an accident, let life just continue, and let's plod along as we were. No way, that couldn't happen. The public expected a reaction. I think a lot of people in the football public wanted to see the reforms, and the catalyst for those reforms was this crazy island out in the whatever Pacific, which I've never been to, but that was the catalyst.
So he talks about the malaise in the association at the time, and then 3 years later, in 2005, after Fran Rooney steps down, John Delaney becomes interim CEO of the FAI. Then 1 year later, he becomes full-time CEO of the FAI, and he stays until that position, of course, until last Saturday when he becomes executive vice president. So we want to look back at some of the key moments of John Delaney's tenure as CEO, and one of the key storylines has been with Roy Keane, and as you can imagine from that interview we just played from 6-1 a couple of moments ago in 2002, Roy Keane wasn't the biggest fan of John Delaney in 2002, and then even a couple of years later as Ipswich Town manager, he voiced his displeasure with John Delaney once again.
We've been robbed, the honesty of the game. It was one of the group matches, I'm sure it was Georgia, where Ireland got a penalty. It was one of the worst decisions I've ever seen from one of their defenders, which changed the whole course of the game. I think Robbie scored a penalty and Ireland went on to win it. I don't remember the FAI after the game saying we should give him a replay.
Well, the FAI are asking for the game to be replayed now.
Who? John Delaney? He's on about the honesty and I wouldn't take any notice of that man.
Really?
No.
So
people forget the last time Ireland in the World Cup, 2002. People seem to forget what was going on in that World Cup, and that man's on about honesty. I was one of the players. He didn't have the courtesy to ring me. He got interviewed and all he said was, I don't know where he is. He's on the island. He's on the island somewhere, I think. I've been involved in Ireland since I was 15 years of age. And that man didn't have the decency even to make a phone call.
But he knew where to contact you.
He could have phoned me. Of course he could have. Try my hotel room. Yeah, you can laugh. That was the World Cup. Yeah. And he's on about the honesty of the game. He wouldn't
that's what they're saying. The game was important. So should an exception be made and should it be replayed? Because there was
They should have cleared it. They should have cleared it. Should have cleared the ball. Yeah. Where was the defenders? The ball bunks in the 6-yard box.
So as you can probably guess, that's right after the Henry handball, and we will come back to John Delaney's role in that in just a moment, but I want to stick with Roy Keane for the time being, because John Delaney, in fairness to him, managed to mend relationships with Roy Keane, particularly just before he got appointed as Martin O'Neill's assistant manager when they were appointed to manage the Republic of Ireland, and he was on the Late Late talking about making things up with Roy Keane.
I've said things in the past which I would regret that I said about Roy, and I think he probably would as well. The good news is we're ringing each other now. And
you're saying nice things to each other on the other end of the phone.
Of course we are, but okay. I mean, there's not a love in yet, you know. But
what does that mean?
What it means is professional, it's business-like. And seriously, Ryan, this is our country. Yeah. This is our country. It's our national team.
Sure.
And no one's bigger than our country. No one's bigger than our national team. Not John Delaney, not Roy Keane, not Martin O'Neill. And it's incumbent on all of us to do the best for our country.
For sure.
Simple as that.
So tell me then, after that tape and then with the passage of time and the mending of fences, as you've been discussing, you then met Roy when? About a week ago, 2 weeks ago?
On the Tuesday after the bank holiday, yeah.
Okay, and at that stage the Martin O'Neill decision had been made?
Well, no, Martin in principle had accepted the role.
Where did you meet Roy?
I did a hotel in London.
In London?
Yeah.
And when you, in a room or a bar?
I met at reception, as it turned out, because I'd sat with Martin for a meal,
yeah,
and Roy had come down later on 11 o'clock. So
okay.
we actually met at reception.
And when you shook hands, I take it?
Yeah, straight away.
And you sat down and had beer, coffee, something like that?
No, we went up to a room and the three of us sat down and for about 40 or 50 minutes.
Didn't know where that was going for a second.
It's not quite a loving, I told you.
Not that quick, it's only so much. So no, but you went up and
threesome in London.
So let's double back to the Henry handball situation, and in the immediate aftermath of that terrible, terrible day before the World Cup in South Africa, John Delaney called this press conference.
The FAI today confirmed they would lodge a complaint with FIFA following last night's World Cup playoff match between France and the Republic of Ireland in Paris. Conclusive video evidence of a deliberate handball by Thierry Henry, which led to France's additional time goal, has been seen by millions of football fans worldwide. The blatantly incorrect decision by the referee to award the goal has damaged the integrity of the sport. And we now call on FIFA, as the world governing body for our sport, to organise for this match to be replayed. The handball was recognised by the FIFA commissioner, the referee observer and the match officials, as well as by the player himself. There is precedent for the invalidation of such results. In 2005, the Bureau of the FIFA World Cup Organising Committee reached a decision to invalidate the result of a World Cup qualification game between Uzbekistan and Bahrain on the basis of a technical error by the referee of the match. The FAI is hoping that FIFA and its disciplinary committee will, on behalf of football fans worldwide,
act in a similar fashion so the standards of fair play and integrity can be protected. We've also written to the French FA today as well to ask them to accede to replay, given the world nature of what happened last night. And it's up to the people who govern the game for me now. I mean, every time I go to a FIFA Congress, I hear about fair play and integrity and all those wonderful words. And this is not just a league match. This isn't a game of 36 matches over a season or anything like that. This was a defining game that the whole world were watching. And if FIFA believe in fair play and integrity and all the things we're told when we go to congresses and through all the different literature we get, this is their opportunity to step forward.
So, of course, John Delaney proceeded to ask for Ireland to be Team 33 at the 2010 World Cup. Sepp Blatter then laughed at John Delaney very famously, and then Sepp Blatter wasn't laughing much longer when he realised how much it would cost him. Take it away, Ray Darcy.
What was that 5 million? I heard you talking the other day. And the way it sounded to me was that we were being a nuisance over the Thierry Henry handball, and they said go away and shut up, and here's 5 million.
I'll tell you exactly what happened there. We felt we had a legal case against FIFA because of how the World Cup hadn't worked out for us with the Henry handball. Also the way Blatter behaved, if you remember, on stage, having a snigger at us and having a laugh at us. So that day when I went in and told him how I felt about him, and there were some expletives used, we came to an agreement. And that was a Thursday, and on Monday the agreement was all signed and all done. It's a very good agreement for the FAI, a very legitimate agreement for the FAI. I'm bound by confidentiality for naming the figure. You've put a figure out there, right? And fair play to you.
What was the agreement?
Well, it was a payment to the association.
But why was the payment?
Not to proceed with a legal case.
All right.
Not to proceed with a legal case. And in there, then decided to put in a confidentiality agreement where I can't talk about the amount involved. You've used the figure there. Well done to you.
Right. Okay. Well, it's out there.
It was a good and a very good, legitimate deal for the FAI.
So let's just wrap up some of the other defining moments of John Delaney's career as CEO of the FAI. His views on the League of Ireland have been well documented. Take this quote from 2014. He said, "The League of Ireland is a difficult child for the organisation," a quote that seemed to stick with him right way through till today. Appointing Giovanni Trapattoni then was a big moment for him as well, and he tells a story in John the Baptist about their early relationship in the early days of Trapp as Ireland manager.
I've an affection for him, because he is this great legend in football, isn't it? He just didn't come to manage Ireland. Look what he did in football before, playing in winning 2 European Cups, marking Pelé, his incredible success as a manager, and you've got to respect all of that. And by and large, he did a very good job for us. I always tell you what about Trapp. We were down in Tramore, and there was no media present, about 400 or 500 there, Club of the Year, and we're all in the room having the crack. And we had a thing that I'd tell a few stories at a mic, but the Trapp would come up and speak, and so I'm up telling a few stories. And I said, "Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to the Irish international manager, Giovanni Trapattoni." And he takes the mic and he says, excuse me, my English is not so good. And I did a mic and said, "Wasn't so fucking bad when you were doing the wages."
So I guess it's kind of open to opinion whether or not the Trapattoni's regime was a success or not. But one thing that certainly wasn't a success was the Vantage Club ticket scheme in 2008. And actually recently, in fairness to John Delaney, was speaking about that. And he says that mistakes were made 10 years ago. The pricing was based on solid advice from major international bodies at the time. The pricing was wrong, obviously, because the recession began to bite. And I think, to be very clear, lessons have been learned. And this time the pricing is realistic. And we think it is the best value in Irish sport. Delaney also went for the Vice President's role of the Olympic Council of Ireland in 2005. He went in, he got it, he went in unopposed, and then 11 years later he released this statement. This is at the end of 2016, remember, a fairly turbulent year for the OCI. He says his role was never active in the day-to-day running of the OCI, and he was in a position to attend only 5 of the last 13 board meetings prior to the Rio Olympics, and he had no involvement in the OCI's handling of ticketing arrangements for the Rio Olympic Games. So on a final point then, I guess the question is, what does the future hold for John Delaney? Could he potentially go into politics or something like that? Well, there's only one place to finish up. He answers that very question in John the Baptist.
It's actually on the pitch after Ireland lost to Italy in the World Cup quarter-final in 1990. And Jack wouldn't go out on the pitch. Jack was devastated they'd lost the game. So Dad got Charlie Haughey, to go out on the pitch to keep the crowd entertained, if you like, before Jack came out afterwards. And Haughey loved it. I mean, he absolutely adored it. And he was waving to everybody
What's your own politics, John?
Mine? None really, honestly, because I tell you, I work with all different parties now for the good of football.
Would you ever go into politics?
No. I mean, people say never, but I've been asked to do it. No, Barry.
Who's asked you?
I was asked by a Fianna Fáil minister in Croke Park one day, would I run in either South Tipperary or Waterford, and in 1/10 of a second. No.
When was that?
That would have been 07, 08, around that time. And he meant it now. It wasn't a throwaway. But it wouldn't be for me. You know, football, I love football. I just love football. I've loved it since I was born. Will I stay in it all my life? Probably not, because, you know, that mightn't be afforded to you, the opportunity to stay in it all your life. But I love it. It's a passion, and it gives me energy and drive. I mean, no day is work to me.